Today, I want to talk to you about perhaps the subject that's going to revolve around or be at least partially to do with the nature of apologies, contrition, sorrow, what it means to feel guilty or that you want to apologize for something, that you have something on your conscience, and the nature of also looking for retribution and forgiveness. Um, what does it mean to give forgiveness or to seek it? What is an apology worth if you have to drag it out of somebody? Is it possible to forgive anything? How do you forgive someone if they don't ask for forgiveness? What does it mean to say you're sorry? Is it more than just saying the words, I think it is? And what does it mean then to make amends, if that is part of an apology, which I think it is? You must at least try to undo any harm or take back any harm you've done or take back anything you've said that wasn't true or that was at least ill advised at the time. Can all wrongs be corrected? Can all trespasses be forgiven? Should we make any endeavors then not to repeat those mistakes, whatever they were, whether they were things we said or actions we took, even if those things can't be undone, even if we can't be forgiven, even if we don't find the forgiveness that we're looking for, can we or should we undertake to not make the same transgressions again? Should we at least try or resolve or promise in some way not to repeat the same mistakes? So, as always, the difficulty with these ideas that I want to flesh out is where exactly to start and how exactly to proceed in a linear fashion when this thing is always star shaped in some way. But I'll start with a little story from my childhood. Um, it was winter time. I was walking home from school. I was probably just outside my garden gate. As far as I remember, or what would make sense, was that we were let out early from school because it was snowing and the heater or the heating system had broken, which is what it always seemed to do whenever it got very cold. And so we were let go home early. Presumably, a lot of other schools were as well. And out from behind a parked car, a snowball hit me in the face and took me by surprise. And then there was a bit of a volley of snowballs. And it was somebody across the street. It was a girl, I believe, who had moved in across the street recently. I hadn't yet spoken to her. Maybe I was probably a bit shy about it. And she was there with some of her friends, or maybe it was a couple of her brothers, something like that. So without really even being able to see out of my eyes, I went inside. I took off my school bag, uh, maybe my wet shirt and jumper, sweater, pullover, and changed into boots and snow gear and hat and gloves, that kind of thing. And I went outside to see if I can, throw a few snowballs back now that my hands weren't purple anymore from the cold, and I could at least gather up some snow into my gloves. But she wasn't there, and neither was anybody else. So I decided I would go down the hill a little ways and find some of my friends and see what they were up to and see if the snow was heavy where they were, and that maybe we could go up the hill and go sledding or tobogganing, really. And I spent a little time down there with them, and then they wanted to come up and see if the snow was heavier up on higher ground. And we brought our toboggans up, and I told them the story about this girl who'd ambushed me, and I said, "You're going to have to help me, and we'll have a proper snowball fight then." So we went past my house on the way up to the hill, and there she was. And I said, "Oh, look, that's her, that's her." Yeah, she was sitting on the curb, and so I think there was an over exuberance then on my part and on my friend's behalf as well, behalves, who just launched into a volley of snowballs at her, and she didn't react. She just sat there on the curb. Uh, on the side of the road. So I said, hey, guys, stop, and I went up to her and I said, are you okay? Because I mean, it's no fun if somebody doesn't fight back, right? And she didn't really even look up at me. And I think maybe I tried to move her arm and she had her head in her arm and she was crying, But I don't think it was, I think I recognized straight away it wasn't because we had thrown any snowballs at her. The snowballs kind of bounced off her. She didn't really even seem to care. She had already been crying. And I think it was because either her brothers or her friends had abandoned her. Maybe they had gone up the hill to go sliding down in the snow, and maybe she wasn't allowed to go with them, something like that. But she wouldn't really talk to me. I think she was embarrassed that she was crying, or maybe she was just upset and didn't want my attention in any way at all. And of course, I felt really bad. Here's me with all my friends, real brave, all ganging up on a girl and throwing snowballs at her when she's already upset and crying. It's not a good look, So I think we probably went, stupid girls, you know what I mean, and went off on our way. I think maybe I probably still didn't feel good about it, but off we went. And I know I didn't feel good about it because I don't think I ever really spoke to her again after that. I think I wanted to, but I was too embarrassed to, or too ashamed of myself, I felt like some kind of inadvertent bully, but there was no real way around it, Kind of like, actually, I'll just deviate from it a little way and saying, I hated playing pool, as in, like billiards or whatever you want to call it, 9-ball, whatever, with girls, because there's no winning. I mean, if you beat her, then everyone goes, oh, you beat a girl. And if she beats you, then it's like, haha, a girl beat you. It's just, you cannot win. So anyway, it's kind of like that. What's the point? There's no valor in beating somebody who's not even fighting back, Right, so that's it, right? Okay, you have to have some kind of valiant battle. You have to imagine, what's the victory going to look like and how is it going to feel? And you really have to assess the lay of the land and understand exactly who your enemy is and what's the state of play before you start hurling stuff at the enemy, or who you think is the enemy. So I think maybe already you can see where I'm going with this. And there's more. But I think that sounds like a good starting point. And I don't know, I have a feeling now this is going to get pretty long. Maybe I'm going to have to split this into a few segments. And if so, maybe this is the first segment that I've just completed. And there is more. So stick around. I think that I can flesh this out better and add a lot more weight to this and give us all something to think about, myself included, because I think what always happens is I might have a lot of nebulous thoughts floating around in my head, but until I lay them down in some kind of concrete form where I've actually changed the thoughts that aren't fully formed into concrete words, for want of a better adjective, the way to proceed then becomes clearer. And that's what my objective here is, to light the way slightly. Because if we all have a battle on our hands, the day after any victory, even if victory seems like a very remote possibility, needs to be considered. You need to know what it looks like. Because all soldiers need to know what they're going to do, or have some idea, or they need to have considered even what it is that they might do when the war is over. In ancient Greece, as far as I understand it, and Rome, all soldiers were farmers. And they knew that after the war, they needed to go back to being farmers again, tending the land. The Greek idea of heaven was Elysium. Maybe it was in Arcadia, like Arcadia. So when you die, you go tending the fields and you just sustain yourself, gently going through a familiar cycle. Planting the seeds, reaping what you sow, and sustaining yourself with the ancients in the land of the gods, perhaps is what Arcadia might mean. Okay, I think I'll leave it there and then move on to another story that's going to flesh this out a bit more.